What if I told you Notre Dame might already have their next star safety? Tae Johnson was a true freshman coming off a position change, coming off a foot injury, and still led Notre Dame's defense with 4 interceptions while missing only 2 tackles all year. That's not normal freshman safety production. That is the future star. This is more than just an exciting young defensive back on my entire board. You know, Tae Johnson has traits that pop, instincts that pop, ball production that pops, versatility that pops, tackling is outstanding, and the fact that he did this early in his career makes the profile that much more exciting. This is not a 3-year starter slowly building towards relevance. This is not a veteran safety finally figuring it out late. This is a young player who suffered an injury as a freshman, transitioning from cornerback to safety, studied under Xavier Watts, got healthy, won the starting job, and immediately became one of Notre Dame's best defensive playmakers. 4 interceptions, 48 tackles, only 2 missed tackles, a pick six against Pittsburgh, a block punt against Texas A&M, freshman All-American honors, Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Week award. That's a loud introduction. That's announcing yourself with authority. And that's what Tae Johnson did. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Draft Yoda here, where we're data-driven and prospect-focused. We're obviously breaking down Notre Dame's Tae Johnson, who is currently sitting at an 8.93 out of 10 on my scale, making him number 55 overall, and the number 6 safety going into this college football season. He grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, started at Northside High School, and was a 2-sport athlete. And before we even get into how he did on defense, let's talk about what he did on offense. Finished his high school career with 139 receptions, 2,286 yards, and 41 touchdowns. That is real receiving production. And that matters from a safety evaluation, because defensive backs with wide receiver backgrounds often have a different relationship with football. They track the football better. They understand spacing. They understand timing. They understand route concepts. They understand how receivers attack leverage. And they don't panic when the ball is in the air. Johnson has also scored over 1,100 points on a basketball court. And that matters too, because the basketball shows body control, explosiveness, spatial awareness, timing, and the ability to play above the rim, and the ability to close out space. And for a safety, that 2-sport profile is exciting. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. I believe Rivals had him as 66 overall nationally. Strong recruiting profile. It's not an under-the-radar guy that showed up at Notre Dame. He's a national-level athlete with a real pedigree. And when he showed up at Notre Dame, he started working at a cornerback. Even though he is now a safety, that quarterback background helps explain the coverage comfort and the movement skills and ball skills. Safeties who have corner experience often have a different level of confidence in space. They understand how to match routes. They understand, what it's like playing with their back to a quarterback, and they understand how to deal with speed, and that foundation matters. But his freshman year didn't go to plan. Freshman year was cut short after 3 games because he broke his 5th metatarsal. That's a tough start. Anytime a young player loses developmental reps, it can slow everything down. During the time he was recovering, he transitioned to safety full time and got to study under Xavier Watts. And I feel like that's a big deal. Watts was one of the best safeties in college football. And Johnson got to learn how to break film down with him, how to see the game from the back end. how to understand the safety position at the higher level. And that matters because safety is not just about athleticism. It's the eyes, it's the angles, it's communication, it's anticipation, it's knowing when to trigger and when to stay patient. That injury could have stalled him. Instead, it became part of the developmental process for him, which is a great thing to hear, not just on the field, but off the field, about how this kid operates. Um, Once he got healthy in 2025, he earned the starting job after the second game. Um, and once he got the job, he never gave it back. Played 10 games, finished fourth in Notre Dame's defense with 48 tackles, led the defense with 4 interceptions, returned one of those for 49 yards for a touchdown against Pittsburgh, returned a blocked punt for a score against Texas A&M, um, earned freshman All-American honors, earned Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Week honors. That's a massive season for a young safety. And it stands out because he was coming back from an injury. That's a massive season, even if you weren't coming back, but because you were coming back, that just blows my mind. It usually takes people time to recover and time to get back to full speed. And it almost looked like Tae Johnson hit the ground running. Um, First thing that stands out is the ball production. 4 interceptions as a freshman is loud. Um, It's the trait that jumps off the page. Some safeties are athletes, some safeties are tacklers, some safeties are just assignment sound. But guys who can take the ball away change games from any position. And Johnson has shown that. He reads route concepts from depth. He drives on throws. He trusts what he sees. And when the ball is in the air, he knows in his heart he can go get that ball. Um, and that's not always teachable. You know, you can teach technique, leverage, and alignment, but some players just have a better feel for the ball. And Johnson looks like one of those players. Um, the pick six against Pittsburgh, he didn't just intercept the pass, he turned it into points, and that matters. Defensive backs can get takeaways, and that's extremely valuable. Defensive backs can create touchdowns, are game changers. 40-yard return showed instincts, anticipation, hands, and finish. And that's why the offensive background mattered. A former wide receiver does not panic in the moment. He knows what to do with the football in his hands, and he can transition from being a defender to a runner very quickly. I love his tackling. Johnson he only missed 2 tackles in the entire year. That's elite for his position, especially for a young safety. Tackling is one of the fastest ways to separate real safety prospects from athletes playing safety, because at the back end, missed tackles are expensive. They are. If you miss a tackle as a linebacker, that means a first down. If you miss a tackle as a safety, that means a touchdown. Johnson is a clean finisher. He comes to balance. He closes space. He wraps up, and he does not play recklessly. That is one of the biggest reasons I trust the projection. Ball skills are exciting, but the tackling becomes the profile floor for a safety. And Tae Johnson just doesn't miss when he tackles. Third thing that stands out is the range. He has good time speed and enough movement ability to carry the deep middle. He can close on throws from deep. He can drive downhill. He can cover ground. And the key is that he plays fast because he sees things quickly, which is very important. Time speed is amazing, but safety speed is about processing more than time speed. You can be the fastest guy on the field, but if you can't process the angle that you need to take, if you can't process fast enough and you hesitate, people score. If that's what you're doing as a safety. That can't happen. The block punt return for a touchdown shows special team value as well. And special teams production is easy to overlook, but it tells you a lot about a young player. It tells you that, he's trusted, he's competitive, and that he can make plays in space. Also tells you that, his playmaking instincts are beyond just defensive snaps. And that matters because if you want to make a roster in the NFL, there's only 53 spots. So you're going to have to be able to do more than one thing. And Tae Johnson has shown that time and time again. Nobody's perfect. I've said in every single one, nobody's perfect. There are some things he needs to improve on. First thing is the timeline. He's still early in his college career. So he can come out early, and that's not going to change the player evaluation, but it does matter on how we frame the projection, because this is where he ends up at 55 overall and safety 6 is because he's still young and he's still developing in the position. If he decides to return for a few more years, a year or another two, he can definitely climb in the safety projections and be one of the top names in that. Or he can come out early and be a developmental tool that a team finds and falls in love with for the next 15 years. It just depends on what matters to Tae Johnson. Another concern is the durability. Wrist injury cost him final 2 games. And then he had the foot injury as a freshman. And I don't want to overstate that, injuries. This is not a player who I'm labeling injury prone, but the medical context is part of the file. And for a young player, availability matters. The 2026 season gives him a chance to show he can handle a full workload and start to finish. And if he does that, this injury concern fades away. But if not, that injury prone label may become a thing. And one of the last concerns for him is him man covering against NFL caliber tight ends. He's still developing as a safety. He has the athletic ability and instincts to grow there, but the reps are still forming. Covering tight ends is not easy. It's the best tight ends are big, physical, and athletic. They can win through contact. They can box you out. They can run routes. They can run option routes. They can attack leverage. And Johnson just has to develop that part of his game coming from a corner to being a safety. He hasn't had enough snaps to truly say if he's good or bad in man coverage against tight ends. But it's something I want to see a little bit more from him. Tae Johnson may have one of the best combinations of instincts and ball production. 4 interceptions as a freshman, only 2 missed tackles, multiple alignments. It's a strong case. The reason he's safety 6 instead of higher is not really the talent, it's the sample size, the timeline, and the development. We need more tape. We need a full healthy season. We need to see the man coverage keep improving, but the upside is blatantly obvious. For 2026, it's about confirmation. Johnson has already announced himself. He has proven that it's time for him to prove he's not just a freshman flash. The checklist is clear. Stay healthy. Start a full season. Keep tackling. Keep the missed tackles low. Show more in man coverage. Continue reading the game from deep. And become one of the leaders of the Notre Dame secondary. If he does that, they could strap a rocket to his back the way he's going to climb, because those tools and production already say future NFL starter, and if the resume matches it, teams are going to fall in love with him. Now, he can absolutely climb from safety 6. He might be one of the easiest risers in the safety group because the most important traits are already there. He's shown he can tackle, he can find the ball, he can make plays with the ball in his hand, he has range, he has versatility. He just needs more tape, and he needs to show he can stay healthy, and he needs to show that these things weren't just one-offs. It's as simple as that, and he can climb. But currently 8.93 out of 10, number 55 overall, safety number 6 going into this college football season. He's an instinctive, rangy ball hawking safety with rare freshman production, outstanding tackling, and a versatility to line up at free safety, in the box, and over the slot. The wrist injury hurt him late. The foot injury his freshman year hurt him. And the man coverage against high-end tight ends still needs to develop, but this player is exciting. Tae Johnson already looks like a future starting safety. If he stays healthy, builds on the freshman tape, and becomes one of the biggest risers in the defensive back group, watch out. But that's my board. That's what I see of Tae Johnson. Is he Notre Dame's next star safety? Would you have him higher than safety 6? And would you rank him among the best young defensive backs in college football? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We do these player evaluations off of film and analytics. If you like them, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. So we're going to keep putting in this work. Our goal is to have over 100 prospects before college football kicks off. As always, I'm Draft Yoda, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.